How difficult, or is it difficult, being a successful woman, Black woman in corporate America at today o'clock?
Today o'clock. It is extraordinarily difficult. Maybe some people have a different experience. Maybe some people have a different skill set that makes them better at it. I think it is extraordinarily difficult because that thing that you're talking about of the twice as hard, your decisions have to be so not only correct, but your reasoning has to be correct. They have to agree with your logic. They have to, how did you get here? You can't just say, do X.
Mm-hmm.
You have to, well, because I was looking at this data point here, and then in consideration of that, and then this, perhaps X would be the way we should go. But let me know your thoughts about that. See how I did that? I mean, and that's every conversation that I have all day long.
What's good, family? Welcome to another episode of the Wealth Blueprint series, where we have conversations from the intersection of family and finance. I'm one of your hosts, D. Johns.
Philip Washington Jr.
Today, as you've guessed it, we have we got a spectacular guest. I keep saying amazing, but I got a feeling this one is spectacular. Vicki Blanton, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am wonderfully well. Thank you for having me. This is very exciting for me.
Thank you for being here, taking some time out of your busy schedule. And I'm sure as the conversation goes, they'll see how valuable your time really is as you start to explain yourself to our audience. Now, here's the thing. Some of our audience doesn't know you. I know that may be alarming, but for those that don't know you, how do you present yourself? How do you introduce yourself to others?
Depends on where I am and what I'm doing. So if I were at a corporate function, I would say I am an ERISA attorney, which that means I practice in the area of employee benefits like 401k plans, retirement plans. And actually, that's how Philip and I got to know Philip a little bit better, talking about that aspect of my career. And it's something I did not know existed in law school. I fell into it by accident. So it was a happy accident that has taken me on a very great journey for the past 25 years. So I'm a 31-year attorney total, 32. Started out as a trial lawyer. So I think pretty quickly on my feet, but I have to keep my own. Both of y'all see which way y'all going on this thing. But otherwise, I'm a native, personally, I'm a native Dallasite. I have 2 daughters who are adulting very, very well. I'm very proud of them. Yeah, I'm divorced and native Dallasite.
Okay.
Easy cheesy.
What part of Dallas?
Oak Cliff.
Oak Cliff.
OC in the house.
Okay.
Yes.
So 31 years practicing?
Came out in 91. So whatever this year is, 32. 32 years.
But she's only 35. How did that?
How does
that
played. Golf
clap. Child prodigy.
Yeah, golf clap. Very well played.
Yeah. So Oak Cliff. So I'm not native Dallas, but okay. Oak Cliff has been ringing bells since I've been here. That was one of the first areas that I learned, and I don't know much about it, but it seems to be a theme that a couple of the guests that have been on here are success stories out of Oak Cliff. Can you kind of give context to what Oak Cliff is like and how? Yeah, let's start there.
There's a complexity that is Oak Cliff, a complexity. So let me clarify this because native Dallasites will get this. Whenever you meet another native Dallasite, the first thing you say is, "Oh, what high school?" So that kind of tells you where you grew up, what part of the city you were in, or if you're truly from Dallas. Because a lot of people say Dallas, and then they're like, "Oh, what's it? Oh, I went to Plano." No, you're not from Dallas, then, right? Which is nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying it's a quick context clue, right? So my home school would have been Kimball. I graduated from Skyline Career Development Center, which was the first super magnet in the country. We had over 4,000 students. It was like a mini city with the first thing of clusters. And that is amazing. The rest of the story is people don't want to think about it this way, but as you get older, you understand the context of history. It really was Dallas's answer to busing, so as to not bus in the traditional sense of taking one kid out of one neighborhood, busing them to another neighborhood, because nobody wanted that to happen. So basically, they built this high school that's at the time, was in the middle of nowhere, like literally nowhere. And so they shipped us all out there, and it, it I don't think anybody's ever written about it. I don't know that they have, but I think it would be a great experiment. I mean, or to me, it seemed like it was a great experiment because it was very diverse. You had vocational clusters, electricians, mechanics, that sort of thing. And you also had the sciences and social studies. I took a pre-law program. That's how I got there. And so that makes for an interesting dynamic of learning how to get along with others from all over the city. But to your question about Oak Cliff, what it is and what it isn't, the challenge with Dallas is that it is very segregated basically by the Trinity River, kind of like one side of the railroad tracks versus the other. There are people who are in North Dallas who have never crossed the Trinity, and all they hear is that, oh, Oak Cliff is the scary part of town. It is not. If you knew the history and why it's so interesting to watch the regentrification of Kessler Park, Stephen Park, Bishop Arts, and all of that, once upon a time, that used to be basically like a Palm Springs type place for celebrities to come and vacation.
Wow.
People don't know that. And probably Oak Cliff has the prettiest natural parts of Dallas with trees and hills. And that's why it's Oak Cliff. People don't think about that, right? There are cliffs on the southern sector. There's that dynamic of an expectation of a certain excellence. And good things can come out of the southern sector of Dallas.
Yeah, no, that's Kelly and I's favorite place to, like, we done staycations there. We're going to meet up with friends of ours on Saturday. Like we always, like like we want to move and by there because it feels like, at least where I grew up, it feels like Houston in Oak Cliff, right? If you moving from Houston, the perception of Dallas, and I'm realizing the feel from Dallas, again, nothing wrong with it, but we were thinking Dallas felt like North Dallas because
Right.
that's the far away perspective. Then when you come and then you go, oh, Dallas has distinct areas, and we was like, oh, Cliff, this feels like home, right? I call it down to earth sophistication. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You got to keep it real. Keep it authentic. People will call you out if you try to act like you don't know, right? But there's another factoid that I heard. The geographic area of Oak Cliff is bigger than Atlanta.
Yeah, I believe that. I believe that. Atlanta seems big. It has a lot of attention there. There's a lot of opportunity. I network with several people there, but in terms of its actual size, it's like you were saying, people claim Atlanta, but they're not actually,
They're
they're
like
Atlanta
Buckhead,
adjacent.
yeah.
So, yeah, so
Right.
I guess the not knowing, not driving around, not visiting Atlanta geographically seems way bigger than it is.
Right.
Tons of opportunity there. So what was life like for you growing up? Who was in the house? What was the family dynamic? And I kind of want to weave it into like what was the conversations around money in the house, if any?
So I grew up with uh both my parents initially. They divorced when I was in junior high school. Um Interestingly enough, my dad, who is an architectural engineer and lives in DeSoto, not too far from here, probably on the other end of Beltline. Um, but my dad was an architectural engineer with the Army Air Force Exchange Service. So when I was about third grade,
AFES.
yeah,
Yes.
AFIS. And 3rd grade, we went overseas and lived in Japan
Okay.
for about a year. My mom, worked, and I don't ever really remember a lot of discussions about money. I mean, it probably was fairly traditional, but my mom worked, right? And I remember in Japan, and this comes as a memory. I was commenting on your artwork being so amazing. My mom got a job because there was a painting that she wanted to buy, and she still has it. And so his was very traditional. I take care of the house, the stuff. Your money is your money. You do what you want to, but I guess they all worked out. My mom was fairly, frugal. Um, she's very much her big saying is, if you want something, put the pencil to it. That's what she always said. Well, put the pencil to it. Like, figure out what it's going to take,
Right.
what it's going to cost, what are you going to need to sacrifice, to realize, do you really want this? Yeah. So from that, I don't remember there being just a lot of conversations. Certainly no conversations about investing.
So
No. Now, the biggest investment, I do remember that my mom was very big on buying her CDs. I would just say CDs. I didn't know exactly what that was, but and her, T-bills. That was her thing. Secure,
Those Series EE bonds.
yeah,
My great
right,
auntie has some.
right. And my dad, when I had my daughters, was very big on buying them savings bonds. In fact, I probably need to pull those out.
Is they
Because,
matured?
they've matured and then some, and then some.
Yeah.
I do need to because my daughters, they won't touch them for whatever reason. I'm like, well, go cash them in.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
it's money now,
Yeah.
right? And they're like, no, Mom, you just hold on to them. I'm like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and I'm gonna ask a follow-up question, but I want to lay the groundwork for like my definition of wealth, right? Because mine is different than what you think a traditional wealth managers might be, or just society is. I think of wealth as quality of life, right? So a lot of people go around and they go, "I'm not wealthy." I'm like, "Do you have a good quality of life?" Yeah. I was like, then you're wealthy, right? Right. Everything else is just an expansion of that, So like, from that perspective, what do you? Because outside looking in, I'm like, Vicky's living the life that she wants, right? I see you every time. You're happy. You know what I mean? Like you're excelling at what you're doing. So like, from my perspective, you have a very wealthy life, even outside of. We didn't even get into your personal financial business, but I'm just talking about from that perspective. Um, uh, what helped shape your perspective on like building this life that you wanted?
Wow. That's an interesting question. I agree with you that well, I very much grew up in the sense of money does not equate happiness. It was more so money creates choices, right? It gives you greater opportunity. And then what you choose to do with it is, that's a matter of being able to make good choices. Now, I will tell you, my mom was very big on consequential thinking, right? Every, what is it? The dynamic, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. There are consequences to what you do. So own your choice. If you own your choice, then you'll be good with the consequences, whatever they may be. So sometimes you have to make some choices that seem negative, but if you've thought through consequentially, you'll be willing to accept that. I think, to me, I think personally, there are a lot of people, who don't own the choices they make. They try to put them on other people. Hence, they become unhappy because they never own that choice. And then they try to pin their unhappiness on other people. They didn't think through the consequences of that choice. And not making a choice and being apathetic is still a choice. People don't get that. I mean, if you just sit in the middle of the road, you're not getting run over today. Right. Eventually, something is going to come along. You've got to make a choice and own that choice.
Yeah. Indecision is still a decision.
It's still a decision.
What did Japan do for you in terms of how you see the world? And for context, for my reference, we lived overseas for 3 years. Mm-hmm. My youngest was 6 months when we left. So the first half of his life, when he's beyond half now, but even when we came back to the States, they still had a reference of life overseas, and they thought the States was a visit, thinking we're going to go back overseas.
Where'd y'all live?
In Dubai.
Okay.
For 3 years. And my older children saw it differently, so it was interesting to see them at different stages of life. I had 5. And at the time, why did I do that? I think at the time they were 6 months, 2, 8, 10, and 12, roughly. So they had very different perspectives of life. The younger two only knowing that as they're becoming more aware of things, the older ones having some contrast of what they left in the States. But the adaptability part, I think, is important to them now. So I have one that's 20 in college, still home. My second oldest is graduating this year, and she started talking about going to school out of state. And I'm like, whoa, wait, you leaving? What are we talking
Embrace that. It's a good thing. Both of my daughters went out of state. It's an amazing thing.
I agree. on camera, I agree. But
I'm not saying it's not hard.
We'll compare and contrast that in a year. We'll have another conversation.
It's not hard. I'm just saying.
But what gives me some bit of confidence and assurance is we've made big transitions before, and they adapted well. Living abroad influence how you see change, how you adapt to change, how you make decisions in life?
I've never thought about it that way, but probably so. And also I would add the opportunity to live in a place with a totally different culture, right? From religion to language to just outlook on life, social cues, like that everything is just different. It's not wrong. It's just different. And we were there in Japan in the mid 70s.
Oh, so that was when it was on the up and up.
Yeah. Well, and also Japan is not a very open country. They're one of the most homogenous, purest races on the earth. True. And they pride themselves on that. Yeah. To be pure Japanese is a high compliment to them. So imagine we're there, Black family with afros, and they were like stunned and amazed, like, how is your hair defying gravity? We just don't understand. we don't understand. And my mom, I remember trying to walk around and find a hairstylist that would press hair. Yeah, not gonna happen. It did not happen. So
and there was no YouTube videos back then.
Oh no, not at all. Not at all. But I learned a lot of things that I still remember. And interestingly enough, my sister and I, so I have an older sister, and it was the two of us and our parents, and we just went this past May back to Japan for the first time. As kids, we always said we were going to go back, right? Mm-hmm. So we did that. We didn't go back exactly to the cities we were in, but still just to be in Japan and just to see how it's changed. And it did influence, first of all, number one, the world is further than your fingertips.
Imagine that.
They tell you that stuff is there, but it's really there, right? As we sit here, logically, intellectually, it's there, but it's another thing to then see a temple. And I do credit my mom too, because there are kind of two types, and you probably saw this as you lived abroad. Those, I'm going to stay on base, or I'm going to stay right where I know they are American speaking, they're this. And then my mom, who's like, we're getting on a train today. Mom, where are we going? I don't know, but we're just getting on a train today. And, we've explored temples. We wandered in on a Japanese wedding. We have like seen and done things because she wasn't afraid of the adventure of it. Like, who knows if I ever get the opportunity to be in Japan again, I'm going to go see what that is.
Right.
And so I do credit her a lot for that. My dad also likewise put in the try it. You don't know if you don't like it.
Yeah.
Can you say you don't like it? You've never even tried it.
Yeah.
One of his biggest pet peeves whenever we travel anywhere is if we went out to eat and we would order a hamburger.
Oh, man.
That would just drive him nuts.
I'd have been excommunicated from the
I
family
know,
for sure.
we did that all the time as kids. I'm gonna get a hamburger. Like, how are you getting a hamburger everywhere? I don't know.
Yeah, like there's a whole menu of choices. There's a whole menu of choices. So what I tried to do with my daughters was try something, try you to know if you like it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually took root. They will try something at least once before they say, and they have like really sophisticated palates now, which I only have me to blame. I guess I can blame my dad.
That's good.
But they will try, like, oh yeah, I don't know that I like that, but I'll taste it. Sure, let's give it a whirl.
Mm-hmm.
So from that perspective, it did change my view on appreciating other cultures, living beyond your fingertips, go see, explore, embrace, and also just get engulfed in other cultures. So now I do have a love of travel. I love travel. I would be traveling right now if I could afford it.
Travel is an interesting thing. I was, as you were talking about the not trying new things, that was much of my, like, I discovered guacamole at like 37. Though my wife had been telling me for years that it's delicious, but what does she know, right?
Right.
And I kind of struggle with, it's an interesting dynamic with her and I because she's more free spirited, live, try, whatever. I grew up even with like diet, a very specific diet. So there are things I just haven't tried because of how I was shaped early on. When you see your daughters going through life now, what is the most rewarding part of seeing how they make choices if they're trying something new, whether it's career or whatever? How does that play into? Because like Philip said, the point of the show is to think more about money when we say wealth,
Right.
like holistically. So I get joy out of seeing things manifest in my children or them bearing fruit.
Right.
Like, maybe we got that part right.
Right.
So as you see your children making these decisions that may ultimately impact their financial wealth or financial health, like what are you the most proud of as you watch them kind of navigate through life?
You're exactly right. And watching them, like, oh my gosh, that worked. It stuck. And old school parenting with some new school kind of nudges along the way of, it works. Consequential thinking. They whatever reason that clicked, they got it. And I've asked them, because I really did not have any issues or problems with them growing up. A few, of course, here and there, growing pains, but for the most part, great kids, older daughter, straight A student, her whole entire life. Went to Howard on a scholarship, full ride tuition scholarship. Younger daughter got into Mizzou, journalism major, #1 journalism school. Got a scholarship to even out for out of state differences. And they are like seriously adulting extraordinarily well. This is really hitting home for me because I've just seen both of them. Well, one is here in Dallas. The other one lives in New Jersey, works in New York City. And I just happened to have been there Tuesday and caught her for lunch. And it was just so cool to be able to call your kid and say, hey, you want to go get lunch? Sure, Mom, meet me here. Da, 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 da. It was just lovely. And
And she wanted to. I think that's
and
important
she wanted
too.
to. And see, that is it is a tricky line. It is a tricky line because I made clear I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to be. You got lots of friends. You only get one mama, and I got to get it right. There are no do-overs. There are no whatever. I can't have you on some analyst couch talking about my mama did this. I'm sure there are some things that you think are very traumatic.
Right.
But
I like how you said that you think are very traumatic.
Yeah, you think were very traumatic. But no, and even my daughters recognize, like the younger daughter, one time she was talking to some college classmate and coming to her with some problem or issue. And she was like, do you not have parents? That's a parent. You need to talk to your parent. And, when their friends meet me, they're like, oh, your mom is so cool. I bet y'all are good friends. She said, no. My mom's friendly, but we're not friends because I need her to be my mom in all things that I know, even if it's something I don't want to do, she will parent me because I know she has my best interests at heart.
Yeah.
And I asked them, like, what made y'all be good kids? Because you see, there are some people, they're great people, and their kids are terrible. They're just terrible kids, right? And I'm like, so that could have happened. I mean, certainly I'm grateful that they were good soil to start with.
Right.
But what made the difference? And they said, oh, you were very clear about making bad choices. The consequences were very clear, very consistent. You told us what was going to happen, and then you followed through on either side, good or bad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes it was a threat of what could possibly be that was beyond the imagination. And some things we just never didn't want to find out how bad it could go. So let's just not test that. What kids thrive on more than anything else is consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the way you put that because that's like I think in terms of like, and this is gonna roll into my next question because I think we talked a little bit about it before, just the whole rise of women in business and one like one of my biggest investment theses, and I call it a thesis tongue in cheek because like on the long term I'm pretty right. You know what I mean? Like I'm pretty right on wrong because all I'm looking at is the gap in perception. I'm looking at the bias of the previous generation and the perspective of the new generation that's building on the foundation. And I'm like, I don't have the bias, so I can see clearly, right? And so I'm saying we're moving into a world where women, like minorities and women. So if you put that on a circle, minority women, Black women, are increasingly having more influence because the perspective is in favor of your perspective because it's a more diverse perspective, right? It's a more balancing of energy, like long term. I'm saying when we're having a conversation 20 years from now, this is going to be the case, and there's financial bets you can make on it. But my point in saying that is, you illustrated a perfect idea of balance that I'm always striving to do. Meaning, you were clear in your thinking with your daughters, but you also wrapped it in love, right? So what I call male energy is clarity, maybe not so much love, right? And then the opposite of that is love without clarity, right? And so you balance the two, which is not it's not a surprise to me that you had very balanced daughters, right? So I'm saying the world is rebalancing in a positive way towards the perspective of women like you, that you are balanced because you've had to operate with a sharp mind, but do it from a happy, good, quality emotional state, right? So I guess I'm saying, like, what are your thoughts on that? Do you see that to be true in other women that you deal with that are dope like you?
Wow. Okay. Let me unpack that a little bit. So I was married to their father. And so they grew up in the household with their father their entire lives. So there was a 2-parent household. And between the two of us, well, one of the things I do remember in our premarital counseling was I knew I was probably going to be the disciplinarian. If you met him, he's just the kind of guy, he's all smiles. He's kind of jolly, he's just easygoing. And I was like, I'm not going to always be the bad guy, right? I'm going to need you to be the bad guy sometimes. And he said, okay. But at the same time, interestingly enough, I don't think my daughters consider him a pushover.
Right.
Right. He never gave off energy of daddy's little girls, little princesses either. Right. He had them, took them camping, showed them how to do stuff, mow the yard, like be self-sufficient women in that way. At the same time, we were able to do the tag team, tag you're it, today,
Right.
because we were also a 2-career household. So that just demanded everybody to do their part. And if you're acting out in school, I can't go to work, and that's a problem.
Big problem.
That's a problem for
Yeah.
everybody. He was in banking during the Great Recession, so it was challenging for him in some ways. But even after we divorced and while the girls were in college, we were always able to come together and like, what are the girls doing? What do they need? This and that. And it made me realize, even with my own divorced parents, even though I probably did not ever see them chat or talk or whatever. Oh, they probably did, because
Right.
I know I'm talking to him, and even my daughters. I was having a conversation with one of my daughters, and who moved to New York, or both of them, and they were like, "Well, I'm trying to do whatever, whatever." I said, "Do you not think I talked to your dad? How do you think you got moved back and forth between DC and New York and internships and this and that if your dad and I didn't talk? Like, how do you think all these things happen?" So it's still, you can co-parent,
Right.
and have that kind of relationship. Now, as they are adults, they more so, it's more of a direct and less between he and I. But that balance that you're talking about, uh, yeah, I did want my daughters to be able to want to have lunch with me. Right. They're cool peeps. I
Right.
like hanging out with them. And they say that all the time, like, oh man, I like my family. I like hanging out with my family. We have a good time. And we do. Um, but it also worked this way in balance in other ways. As I mentioned, we were career 2-parent household. So what I figured out was doing my mantra is old school in a new way. Right. So my thing is, we will have dinner together every night as a family. That tells me when we need to, and we will sit down and we will have dinner. That don't mean I have to cook it, right? So we go to restaurants, and while we're ordering food, how was your day?
Right.
Well, what happened with little Johnny on the playground? Oh, what you got to do? And we had a master calendar, and if you didn't get it up on the calendar, your need for soccer, your whatever, and it was a calendar. Everybody had a column for the whole month. Everybody write down what's on your column. It made them responsible for their own lives and their own issues and their own whatever. And it's communal. And you have a responsibility to this family too. We're not just here to serve you. If you want your needs met, you need to let us know, or you got to figure it out. This is how that plays out. I'm sorry, I'm kind of digressing more.
It's resonating.
Yeah, I'm loving it.
So much so. Oh my God, that younger child of mine, she's amazing. So she was in elementary school. Again, we had a pickup for her to go to daycare, after school care, and she wanted to do the drama club. Baby, that's not gonna happen. They come pick you up. I pay for this service for them to come pick you up. Your dad can't get to you. I can't get to you. You're gonna have to just, sorry, you can't do drama club. She was I want to say she was like in 4th grade, 3rd or 4th grade, something like that. So, I go to one of our little neighborhood Christmas gatherings or whatever. I am the only person of color, still, even 25 years later, the only person of color in my neighborhood. But what I would always do, because they were always, the moms that didn't work or whatever, they would check on my daughter. And I always would give them like a bottle of champagne on New Year's, kind of like, Happy New Year's, thanks so much for seeing about my child, blah, blah, blah. But, didn't think anything about it. Anyway, so I go to the Christmas party and I was like, oh my gosh, her son was named Evan. My daughter's name's Devin. So Evan and Devin just love that drama club. They're just having such a great time in drama club. Yes. Oh, Devin has been telling me great things. What drama club? What is she talking about? And of course, I can't say anything because they're going to have CPS in my house. Like, she don't even know what her child is. She said, oh my gosh, they just, and when I take Devin and pick her up and take her to the daycare, they just said, Evan just hates to see her go.
She negotiated.
Yes. And you know what? I am so sorry. I have been so busy. I've been meaning to thank you for that. This child in 4th grade had figured it out. I told her what the issue was. I told her it wasn't just no, not that I don't want you to do drama club. It is no, because you have to get from school to after school care. I need to know that you're safe. I need to know that that's where you are. And I'm paying for this. No problem.
Handle, Mom. Handle.
Wow.
She might would have wanted to told me that she handled it, but I was really doing yes. And thank you so much. It's been crazy at work, and yes. And I just went home and like, seriously?
Wow.
Seriously?
Wow.
So in the sense of and I've always talked to my children directly. I never sugarcoated anything. I rarely tried not to do because I said so. Sometimes it would get to that because I said so. I'm tired of talking to you. But I really, again, the consequences of this is how all of this came to be. We didn't just fall out the sky. There is a limited pot and pool of money. They pretty much did everything they wanted to do. And also, what are you willing to do to sacrifice to get to do? My daughter didn't make JV volleyball. And we did the good parents and went up and talked to the coach. And the coach was all sad and like, oh, we love her. She's so amazing. And she's such a sweet person. And it was like all of these things. I'm not hearing anything about volleyball skills, right? And then when it came back, he said, she just didn't have this skill, this skill, this skill, this skill. I'm like, well, did she know she was supposed to have these skills or whatever? And he's like, well, we kind of did drills. He was trying to start. And then this is the interesting part. I'm sorry, I'm diverting, and you're probably going to edit this, but this is interesting. This is interesting. So, and then it was a white coach, had known her, and he was like a really, really nice guy. He really, really was. But he said, if I can just be candid with you, I only have so many spots. Your daughter is going to college, without a doubt. These other girls, this is their only shot.
Opportunity, yeah.
I can't do it on a Devin just wanting to be here. I didn't mean to say her name, but Devin, she just wanted to be here. So when come back around and, she cried a crocodile tears or whatever. And I said, well, Devin, I'm sorry. We talked to the coach. He said you could be the manager if you wanted to. You could, do this other stuff. And he's like, okay, well, she was sad. I said, well, Devin, what did you really like about volleyball? Oh, we got to wear uniforms. We got to wear cool jackets. Hanging out in the weight room. I'm like, I'm not hearing anything about the sport, about the actual sport itself. I said, here, Devin. And she was like, but I really want to be on the team. I said, look, Devin, I've already talked to them. But here's my issue with it. And I don't have a problem talking to him, but I have never once had to tell you, get that volleyball off my table. I have never once had to say, Devin, stop bouncing that volleyball off my house. I have never once had to say, Devin, we can't afford to send you to camp because you've never asked to go to volleyball camp. So I'm kind of with Coach on this one.
Right.
It's not in your heart to do it for the love of the sport.
Yeah.
So again, it's about making it clear to them, what are you willing to do to make your dreams come true? What are you willing to sacrifice, work for, earn that is your own? And that to me is the part of the wealth too, because part of wealth is ownership, whether it's your choice, whether it's your decisions, whether it's your house, whether it's your car, It's ownership.
Mm-hmm.
When you own something, you have a different level of commitment to it and what you're willing to do to defend it and not let anybody take it from you for any silly, foolish little reason and value it. So people are so precarious with some things that are irreplaceable.
Well, let's take a quick break here from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Do I want to make more? Yeah. Am I not making more because of limited thinking? Of course. Or I'll be making it, right? Then you realize, yeah, I'm never going to stop wanting to expand. I'm always going to want to expand. So beating yourself up on like your current limitations doesn't make any sense. This episode is sponsored by the Wealth Building Made Simple podcast, available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and every other major podcasting platform.
All right, we are back with the one and the only Vicki Blanton. She has given us some incredible stories, and we want to get a couple more out of you before we say goodbye. One thing that is of interest to me is like, how difficult is it to be a successful woman in corporate America? I have a perspective of what it was for me as I climbed the corporate ladder. That was ultimately leaned against the wrong building. So there's that. And now that I'm out of it, being the one to support my wife as she did me, as she's the lead in pursuit of her goals and dreams, like I'm trying to unexecutive, uncorporate to a degree to make sure that I am showing up for her the way that she needs me. And I would call it down to give a detailed report about how that's going, but I wanted to stay positive. As positive as possible. But for me, like I'm acutely aware that that's something I'm trying to unlearn, because I think of everything as not do what I say, but I'm used to always being on point for making decisions. And I always had to know more, I always had to be ready because I look like me. And like there was that pressure. And then there was we were a single income household for my wife was in the military. We made a decision for her to come home and be a stay-at-home mom. And since 2015, like that's kind of been a pressure. So my question back around, how difficult, or is it difficult being a successful woman, Black woman in corporate America at today o'clock?
Today o'clock. It is extraordinarily difficult. Maybe some people have a different experience. Maybe some people have a different skill set that makes them better at it. But I think it is extraordinarily difficult because that thing that you're talking about of the twice as hard, your decisions have to be so not only correct, but your reasoning has to be correct. They have to agree with your logic. They have to, how did you get here? You can't just say, do X. You have to, well, because I was looking at this data point here, and then in consideration of that, and then this, perhaps X would be the way we should go. But let me know your thoughts about that. See how I did that? I mean, and that's every conversation that I have all day long. And I know I'm not a Black man, so I can't speak to that, but I do know there is still a difference between being a man and a woman, right? So I still have the double Black and a woman of I have to be not only a certain level of deferential, but I have to have a certain level of submissiveness to my voice too.
Can't be angry.
Which, yes, the angry Black woman, which is so challenging. However, a lot of people lean into that Black, white, polka dot, whatever. Philip, when you asked the question earlier about that the world is leaning towards Black women in navigating this thing and where we go in the future. I got lost in thought, and you were probably looking at my expression because we always have. The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world. Black women have been raising people's children, everybody's children forever.
That's true. Yeah.
Forever. Right? But it was from the background. And when you look at even, like the movie Hidden Figures, right? Okay, they were doing this great work, but it still was background and allowing them to come into the room. Now we're getting to the point where Black women are in the, at the table in the room, and some at the head of the table. We're convening the meeting. So it is difficult. There are still challenges with how people perceive your leadership, as it were. I still get pushback. I can't, when I do say, just do this. Again, I'm a consequential thinker. I can tell you how I got there. I don't have time for that right now. I just need you to do it. If you want me to stop this and explain my step and process, because that's how we're trained to do. Right? I can do it in an instant. I just do it quicker, faster.
Yeah.
Right? And it's exhausting. It is just incredibly, incredibly exhausting. So when you say be successful, I don't know that I'm successful. I do know that I'm tenacious. I do know that I'm still here. So maybe it's just a matter of longevity. Is longevity what equates to success, that I'm still in corporate America? And as we all know, in corporate America, that's precarious all the time, because that's at a whim, whether you're still here. I just, fortunate enough that I picked up a skill set that was needed, but, no one is indispensable. They can get someone else to do it for sure. I just have a special, but they can't do it like I do it. Right?
100%.
And the way I do it is, and I do see the looks of awe. Vicki, how do you do this? And you make it seem so simple. So simple.
It's the reps.
I mean, that's what I do.
And I think when you take the fact that you are on so many boards and head of a old school powerful organization here in Dallas now, and I look at it more like, and it's going to turn into a question, but it's more like the perspective and the approach that I feel like you have is something that I'm personally learning, because I am like, if you think of my core nature, right? My wife has helped balance me out, but my core nature is I'm a man's man. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do Muay Thai. I mean, I keep going back to that, but if I didn't do that, then I would like have all that unbalanced male energy that bleeds over into everything else. Cause I'm a very dominant, aggressive, clear-minded thinker. Right. And so I've had to learn to balance out cause when and this is, so I understand, because when you're like that, I was going to say, when you're smarter than a lot of people, a lot of the times, right? Which you go, should I say that? But that's just the truth.
It's fact.
Yeah, it's just the truth. You have to learn the patience to let them catch up, right? Which I didn't even realize was a problem until recently. You know what I mean? I used to go,
why don't you get that?
Yeah, like, what are we talking? Why am I slowing down? Like, just I'm always right, so just do it. But you can't say that. But I learned from you and my wife and other people that no, just people go at different paces, and so I'm when I say I look at you and how you do it, like, I learn from you, because I'm like, no, like, you are where you are from my perspective, because maybe by necessity, I didn't have to learn it. I'm a man. I could muscle through it, and then if you want to fight, we can square up.
Very male energy. Very male energy.
Yeah.
Well, but here's the point to that. Because I grew up with a bunch of uncles, like a bunch of uncles. I want to say like 9 or 10 uncles. Well, no, It was, I think it was 7 uncles and also a bunch of boy cousins, a whole bunch of boy cousins. So, and one of my cousins teases me all the time. He says, "You speak Guy. You speak Guy very well." I'm like, okay, I didn't know that was a thing, but okay. He said, "No, you clearly a girl because they do." And my cousins all know they treat me like a princess. They do, which I love that. Thank you, cuz. But he said, just I guess it goes back to that balance thing, right? So, and my mom confirmed it one time. When we were all working at home and she was at the house with me doing some stuff. I was on a conference call, and you know how you do that little pre-chatter before the call. And one of the guys said something to me, teasing me or whatever. And I had mentioned to her earlier, my mom was an executive secretary, and she was one of the first Black executive secretaries in her corporation, a major corporation. And she was like, "Yeah, I see why your secretary doesn't like you." I'm like, "Well, why?" She said, "'Cause you're one of the guys." I'm like, "Huh?" I said, I don't understand what they." She said, "Oh, no, I heard you just teasing back and forth with those guys. We would never do that. Most women would never do that. And you were just so comfortable with it. And the guys, are ribbing you and you're ribbing them back and, chit-chatting and this and that." I'm like, "Mom, do you know how many meetings I sit in that I am not only the only woman, I'm the only Black and the only Black woman in a room full usually of white men? Of course I have to be able to like, ha ha ha, John, that was so funny, go back and forth with them or else I won't be in the room. I won't be in the room." And it does make a difference. Another different time, someone had told me long time ago, if there's a table, you always sit at the table until somebody tells you to move, right? But always walk in the room, sit at the table. So in my little naive self, that came back to me when I was at a meeting and walked in, sat at the table. And there were chairs already lined up on the table. Now, interestingly enough, corporate secretary walked in, he sat at a chair on the wall. Head of labor employment law, attorney, she came, sat on the wall. And I was like, this is kind of interesting. Okay. And then everybody else filled in. It's like, "Hey, Vicki, blah, blah, blah." And we did our meeting. And so later, I didn't think much about it other than, okay, I don't know why you didn't sit at the table, but okay. And then it came to me later. She was over labor and employment. She said, "When you were sitting at that table, I walked in and you were like at the table, your stuff set, ready to go, and then everybody greeted you." She said, "Man, that was powerful. That was powerful." Little things like that you don't know mean something to people, they do. That is almost imperceptible, right?
Yeah.
To the extent I take up space, I'm gonna take up space. I have to do it in a way that doesn't have negative impact.
Right.
And trust and believe, and this is the other part that I really tell my daughters and I tell younger people, this is 30-some years. This ain't like, yeah, I didn't just graduate and come out like this. This is years, decades, smoothing, training, soft skills, watching other people, reading the room. I cannot tell you how much a lot of this is soft skills. And you have to be willing to just sit back and just perceive the room. And a lot of times, now, a lot of times it is racism and sexism. I'd say that's about 80% of it. But a lot of times it's not. People are concerned about themselves, their own welfare, what they want to get done. And if you can find some way to tie in what you need done that is, helpful to them, I'm really help me help you, right? That is a lot of corporate America energy. But that takes time and willpower and the ability to withstand. And some days you can do it. And then, some days Vicki Blanton shows up for the office, and then sometimes it's Kiki from Oak Cliff. And that is right under the surface, right? And then I always think about what y'all ever see the skit Dave Chappelle when Keeping It Real goes horribly
Yeah, go
wrong?
Oh
wrong.
man,
Mm-hmm.
that was the funniest one.
That was
Shake my hand.
Yes, yes. There are many meetings that I want to go in and go like that. But what I learned the corporate way to do that, I take exception to that. That was a fighting words. In any meeting, I take exception to that. Huh. And the other one is that's very funny. Well, lawyers do it all the time, but if somebody's talking whatever, and you're like, and your response basically is whatever. Duly noted.
Absolutely.
And then you can move on to whatever you're talking about. I did that in a meeting once, and everybody fell silent. This guy was going to read me the riot act, and he was showing me this and that and the other. And it was a big, it was like one of these meetings cast up thousands in the air. And he was going to show me, and he slammed the book shut. Duly noted. Now, if we could move on to the next da-da-da-da-da-da, in my mind, and everybody just went quiet. And I was like, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? And so the opposing side, they got up and left. The second the door shut, Vicki, thank you. We've been trying to shut that guy up for years. And you just did it in 2 words.
But I mean, that's a superpower. I'm telling you, like we talked on the phone before.
Yes.
There's a generation of guys like me, right? That our personality, the aggressive personality, is the perspective that runs the world today, right? I'm not saying me. But I'm saying that mindset. But a lot of us that are of this generation want to learn from you because, like, the first thought that comes to my head when somebody gets disrespectful in a meeting is be like, pause, let's step outside and handle this. Which you can't do that. You just can't do that.
It doesn't go well.
It doesn't. It doesn't kind of like, I'm smarter than you. I can beat you up. If we're gonna do some reckless talking, right? Let's do it with the hands because, like, that's the natural progression of how I see things going. Which is, I understand that's not the right way. So I have to either
bide your time,
right? Which doesn't address the problem, right? Because then I have or learn, like what you just said. Duly noted. I was like, that is genius. Like that's a genius move. Now he just took a swing, missed, and now he feeling shamed and stupid.
Yeah, and it's, it sounds learned, right? And like, I'm giving that due consideration. That's another way to say that. And due consideration is no consideration. That's what that's the amount of consideration you're due. So, there are other ways that you can do these things. And, to the extent you do martial arts, which is, a lot of that whole, and maybe that's back to Japan, you got to master yourself in most things, right? You got to learn to calm yourself. Yeah, you're going to feel better in that moment. But then what?
Right.
And then what? That was to the point of, that's how my mom taught consequential thinking. It was always, and then what? That is always, I don't care what sentence you say, that is the next question. And then what? Well, I'm going to tell him out. Okay, and then what? Well, I might get fired. Okay, and then what? And then what? And then what? And it never stops. Now, that's kind of a crazy way. I won't say crazy, but in some instances, you can drive yourself crazy where you have to get to a point of, okay, you know what? I'm good. That's all I got. If you're not willing to accept that, you can't just go off on somebody and, let's now. I will say there are some times where people need to know that's where you can go, and you have to give them a demonstration of that. I've given a few choice words and was surprised to find that I still had my job. I would have fired me. I'm like, did I say that? Can you say that? Can you do that? And it worked out from the sense of, I'm here. I live to tell the tale. Again, there are some balance. Consequences I'm willing to accept.
But that's respected. What I found out in my journey is that they talk to each other like that in a certain setting and then go have beers afterwards.
Yeah.
I wasn't invited to have the beer, so I thought it ended there.
Right,
I'm like,
right.
Even if you're not talking to me, my face in the meeting, like, how are you gonna let him you accept that from him, but it was just the nature of it. And that's something that I hate to say I had to learn. I learned it, and I learned how to, I figured out a way how to maneuver with it. So I became good at helping people recite my thoughts back to me as if they created it, right?
Which is so annoying, but
Which is so annoying, which I knew my time was drawing short, is because I started interrupting conversations and asking, so what was different about the way he presented than what I presented 10 minutes ago? Because I want to be clear in case I missed something so that I can present it clearly the next time. But I knew I was on my way. Anyhow, we're gonna start there. We're gonna turn down the street, head to the cul-de-sac, and start wrapping this. But given all of that, where does your personal peace of mind play into how you think about wealth, what you think about wealth, and how you maintain it, given kind of the examples that of your everyday life? Because I get it. Like, it's a real, like, I didn't realize how, and I'm not putting this on you, I'm clearly saying me, how angry I was until I got out of corporate. Because I woke up with a scowl because I felt like that was my armor for the day. And my wife was like, I just asked you, did you want pancakes? Like, I didn't even know.
Right.
Like, it was just, like I said, it was my armor. So how do you manage it in real time, if you don't mind sharing with the folks?
When I speak to law students, I tell them all the time, you got to learn to manage that stress. And you've got to be able to manage the people in your lives to give them a clue that you're under stress. My phrase that all my family and friends know, I will always answer the phone. I always answer the phone. I don't care where I am in the world, literally. I will answer the phone. I will be like, hey, what you want? What do you need? I'm in, Japan. What do you want? Speak your piece, go away. But at the same time, when I'm in that moment, I'm in the fray. What do you need? And they know, like, oh, get to the issue quickly. I'm not being rude. I just need you to get to it. Let me go on and do my quick consequential thinking of what it is you're calling me about. Let me work it out, triage it, and send you on your way. But I always tell them, don't be a jerk, particularly to your family, because you've got to come back. They will allow it for a while, but if you do it in such a way constantly, consistently, they don't have to be there and take abuse. They'll do it for a minute. They all understand you're under stress. So you got to find a way, whatever that thing is that allows your happiness, whether it's a hobby, whether it's therapy, whether it's, understanding it's a moment in time. You And you're right, there can be an undercurrent of anger. I'm dealing with a situation now. I have an undercurrent of anger over a slight, truly a corporate America slight. At these same, and I was like, but I'm okay. That's what they want to do. I'm okay. And it took a good friend of mine. I went to a conference and she looked at me and she said, I'm gonna need you to stop saying you're okay. I get why you're saying it, because you want to make it appear that you're not going to be bothered by that, but you are. And for me now, what gives me solace in it, what I'm learning to do as, again, old school in a new way, bide my time. Perfect opportunity will come along. And revenge is a dish best served cold. I got time today. I'll just wait for it. It will present itself in the most perfectly pristine way that I could not have imagined or orchestrated in my wildest dreams. I'll just wait for it. That's what they do. You just got to be patient and wait for it. And sometimes you're patiently waiting for it and things move on and you don't have to. Maybe the anger will subside. Maybe things will move on. Maybe other great things will make up for it in my life that, it gives it the proper perspective of the minimal thing in my life as it should be. It is the pea in my mattress, under my mattress, the princess and the pea in my mattress. It's that the pebble in my shoe.
Gotcha.
Right? So peace of mind is a big thing. This is probably the greatest peace of mind in this moment in time in my life I've ever had. I've ever had. Because I just have to manage me. Which that I'm realizing I'm not that easy to manage. I'm not parenting myself very well. That's what I'm in this phase. I'm trying to figure out how to parent myself of making me do the things I don't want to do that I know I need to do. I'm not doing that very well. I'm working on it. And yeah, that corporate America thing, it is a challenge. And what's funny, they know they're doing it and they're waiting on it and they're waiting for me to do whatever. And so part of it has to do with my office, and it's not in a very wonderful place, but oh, Vicki, how's your office? And just even that thing. And my response is, wait for it. You know where the Queen's throne is? Wherever she sits. I'm fine.
Yeah.
I did not have that one in my arsenal.
That's real. As you were talking, like you were just activating a lot of old premeditation field. And at this point in my life, because of where I'm moving in the world, it was like God gave me meditation, because he's like, you going in places where you can't take that what's my boy name? You can't take that we were just talking about him off air. You can't take that mindset. Yeah, I was like, that Houston boy was still in there. You know,
fire off.
Oh, Oak Cliff is still, and you can't lose that, right?
I don't want to.
You can't. I mean, that's what got you there, right? That's and I mean, there were times I to your point of that underlying anger that you didn't even realize there. One morning I was driving to work, and then I was like doing something, and I touched my face. I kept like, I thought it was like a hair or something. Tears were streaming down my face. I didn't even realize I was crying.
Ooh.
On my way into work. Right? And I was like, oh, then the Oak Cliff and me like, oh no, sis, that's crazy. we not doing that. Yeah. We not doing that. Let's figure that out. I mean, I didn't leave at that point, but sometimes too, being able to hear your wife say that, right? And accept it and not get defensive that there's something wrong with her for, calling you out, right? Me being able to hear my colleagues say, you're not okay. And not take it as an attack on you and just say, oh, okay, I'm apparently not hiding it as well as I thought I was hiding it. So being in balance with other people as well. So not just balancing yourself within, trying to balance your environment, balancing these kids, this job, all of that is crazy, but you got to balance with others as well.
Yeah, this was good.
Yeah, I didn't know I needed to introduce you as a life coach earlier. You were reading me the whole time.
I get these things from people, and if I can just save some people a step or two along the way, it's helpful. A lot of people, I'm realizing, don't have this in their lives of just talking and thinking through things. And some things you got to actively work at, and you got to want it. Some people really are happy in their misery. Be good with that. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to let you sit with that. You seem like you got that under control. Enjoy. I'm going over here. Yeah.
That sounds like a whole episode, right? How can you be happy in your misery? We'll have to figure that one out.
A lot of people are.
Yeah,
because that's what they know. Yeah. It's because what they know.
And you decide to be happy. My dad told me earlier, happiness is a fleeting emotion. So you pick you're happy. Yeah. If you associate a thing with happy, I guess you can in fact be happy in whatever that thing is.
Pigs like to play in the mud. That's what they do.
Tis true.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
Tis true. Vicki, thank you for spending time with us. You're not paid for this. I don't know if y'all worked that out. No,
we worked out an arrangement.
Okay. If you are, invoice him. He's the parent company. Yeah, I'm a subsidiary if that's the case. He's the parent company. But no, this has been great, man. It's like I get the value to me is perspective and real time adjusting, especially from somebody that's done it, right? That has the actual experiences, not just hypothesizing and talking out the side of your neck. Are you on social media? If so, how can people find you? Or you too busy being busy? Too busy being successful.
Oh my goodness. I am on LinkedIn. So that's probably the best way.
Okay.
I mean, I do have an Instagram. I'm not very good at that.
You said my password is set up a certain way.
Yeah, the way my bank accounts are set up. Yeah, no. Yeah, I'm on Facebook.
Cool. Well, if it's linked down below, that's how you can find it. If it's not, this was all the value that you needed to get from her. You got anything else?
Catch her in Oak Cliff walking, hanging out.
In the daytime, I wouldn't try to catch her in Oak Cliff at night.
Well, I live in now, so
I'm gonna take that out. We're not gonna say that. That's gonna do it for this episode of the Wealth Blueprint. We hope you guys gain some value. There's a bunch of links below to point you to different places. If this is a clip, social media, there'll be something pointing you to where you can find this. Everywhere. It's on every podcast platform. It's on Roku. It's on YouTube. So however you got this little bit of it, or if you got the whole thing, we appreciate you. Any reminders?
No. Hey, thanks for coming through, Vicki. This was good.
Cool.
Thank y'all for the opportunity. This is really meaningful to me. If I could just say this one part, one of the things that I often think about, I consider myself as the bridge generation, right? So my parents, baby boomers, and then, raising millennials or whatever. And y'all are like that half generation behind me. So I appreciate, like I said, doing the old school in a new way. And I don't think a lot of people get that. So I appreciate that y'all think what I have to say is of value.
Very dope. We appreciate you guys. God bless you. Peace.